I think I screwed up or the cake. I've been married to my wife, 30 female, for 5 years, and it seems like she's become a total stranger in the past year. We were both established when we met, and it seemed that we had similar ideals at first. I attended a trade school and studied a highly technical trade. I labored out of entry-level jobs before proving myself and establishing a name in coding, to the point where my recommendations superseded my schooling. My wife has a master's degree and works in management. This resulted in what I saw as friendly tension at the moment. I used to complain about middle management. I perceived them as impediments to completing chores. Middle management, according to my wife, was required for directing staff and resources. Personally, I had a poor run of middle management that assumed code engineers were modular and disposable. They established unrealistic schedules, promised customers features, and caused scope creep. When I informed her about the next stupid thing my boss did, she invariably sided with him. It should be noted that she never met him. He sees things that you don't, she explains. After approximately a year of dating, I learned not to tell her about my workday if it didn't entail days off or increases. She seemed to dislike the fact that I didn't return to school for a 4-year graduate degree. She pushed for it before marriage, but when I explained the debts and debt, she dropped it. When we married, she and I were both reasonably debt-free. As I previously said, we were also very comparable in terms of earning potential. I began working for a firm with an owner who spoke personally to me around 2 years ago. He noticed the worth in me and my potential. I now earn half as much as my wife, and my boss is a kind person who gets along well with me. While he is not a technical lead, he epitomizes the qualities of a Scrum Master. I'd say he knows how to keep out of my way, but that sounds hostile. He's an excellent boss. Overall, the first 4 years of marriage went well. I didn't grumble about my bosses at work, and she didn't pressure me to invest thousands of dollars on a piece of paper and debt. We had a good time, went on multiple date nights a month, shared interests, cooked together, read books together, and watched movies together. We both worked from home during the initial lockdown. Our property is lovely, with 3 extra bedrooms in case we ever have children. One had already been transformed into an office for me, and when lockdown began, the second was converted into an office for her. We both telecommuted, but we had quite different approaches to it. I'd wake up, prepare breakfast, wash, put on a suit, and stroll into my home office. By the way, I despise suits and ties. However, it does put me in the mindset of, okay, this is work time. My wife, on the other hand, gets out of bed, has breakfast, washes her teeth, puts on a t-shirt and sweatpants, and goes into her office to play Candy Crush between emails on her iPad. I suppose I view it as work from home, whereas she sees it as work from home. I'm getting off track. It's strange how closeness can generate distance. She has many meetings every day, which I know since she has her door open and I can hear them. I just have one meeting every day, which is in Scrum, and it is brief. For mine, I shut my door. She stated she was offended 5 months ago when I closed my door for the daily Scrum. I mentioned that it was for my own peace of mind and to keep my mind on work. She expressed concern that I was concealing something. I attempted to keep our interests going together, but she dismissed it as we see each other all day as is. I should have clicked the button, but I didn't. I mistook the shutdown for something temporary, and maybe I shouldn't have. It grew much worse when her firm announced a partial office reopening. She grabbed at the possibility to be a part of the company's 50% return in a rearranged workplace to allow for social distance. I don't blame her. I miss working in an office as well, but my firm hasn't established any offices yet, and as long as I have access to my development environment, it's not really necessary. I believe some of her coworkers got into her brain. She stayed after work to hang out with them and have drinks at a coworker's house. I urged her for further information, but she was reserved and guarded. She, too, got colder and colder. At that moment, I felt more like a roommate than a wife. On a Saturday last month, she placed her old iPad on the desk and requested, "Can you get rid of this? I'd want to give this to my niece." I shrugged, knowing that I did similar things for my family on a regular basis, and didn't give it much thought. I turned on the iPad as she left for another business event. Maybe my wife was becoming so bold that she assumed I wouldn't check it and would simply perform a factory reset. The point is, I examined it and discovered her texting app, pics, videos, and instant messages with her employer. For the last 2 months, they'd been having an affair. I can't put into words how I felt in my veins. It was as though my blood had turned to ice. It made me think of the moment in Equilibrium when the polygraph flatlined. I duplicated everything, placed it in a cloud storage account I use for software projects outside of work, and began hunting for a lawyer. I didn't approach him at first since I wasn't sure what to say. My body's new feeling felt like I was both numb and walking through water. She either didn't notice or didn't give a we were already dead in the bedroom at that moment. We were definitely at the roommate stage. When I called a lawyer, he told me that he wanted to continue investigating and that I should keep my lips quiet. He advised me to hire a private investigator, and he recommended an excellent one. We spent the previous 4 weeks collecting evidence while he prepared to file for divorce. Be patient, he kept saying. And at first, my ice-cold veins and her apathy made it simple. My lawyer informed me yesterday that the paperwork was nearly complete. Our state is to blame, and the PI obtained images, video, and text messages. It was a foregone conclusion. Then, yesterday night, I have no idea what happened to me. But the ice melted and turned into flames. She arrived home late, as usual, and I don't recall what she said to me, but I left. I told her that I hoped it was worth banging her boss. She had gotten rude and vengeful. She said I wasn't emotionally there for her. I was just lounging all day at home, despite the fact that I was generating the majority of my income from home. I wasn't really intellectually stimulating, even though I work a highly technical job. When I informed her I had a lawyer, she laughed. She thought my bluff was pitiful. I was not going to abandon her. That even if I divorced her, she'd receive half of my salary. If I remained with her, at the very least I get to have on occasion, so I shouldn't screw things up. She was a completely different person. That's not a marriage, I told her. She laughed once more. This is the 21st century, honey. A lady may have her cake and eat it as well. She laughed once more before retiring to bed. I contacted my manager and said that I needed a week off to deal with a family matter. Of course, he agreed. In my workplace, I slept on the sofa. She departed while I was getting ready this morning, saying merely, "Don't wait up." When I arrived at my lawyer's office, he informed me that the documents were ready. He was accompanied by a process server and inquired as to how I wanted the documents served. I informed him. My attorney, bless his heart, smiled and said, "You had best not. I've had a lot of individuals approach me about doing accusacy or vengeance serving, and I always talk them out of it. Judges have no sense of humor." He warned me that it may cost me alimony or assets. I didn't mind. Her comments stung me. I wanted her to get scorched on the behind. The lawyer tried all he could to dissuade me from doing it, but when he realized how serious I was about it, he surrendered. Heard my concept from the process server. He, too, chuckled and said, "You're my hero." I had to custom order something, which came with a rush fee. I instructed the process server to pick it up and bring it, along with the paperwork, to my wife's workplace. When process server was through, he informed me what occurred. He said he had no choice. He claimed to have arrived at her workplace with the enormous box and documents. He approached my wife while she was smiling and conversing with a group of coworkers and friends and asked her name. She agreed and inquired as to what it was all about. He opened the package and placed it on a neighboring desk. It was a cake with a personalized picture printed in icing on top. I had no idea that was a thing before this morning. The photograph depicted my wife and her employer in an embrace. They were dressed, but it was clear what they were doing with the phrase, "Here's your birthday cake. Consume it." Icing was piped in over the picture. The papers were placed on the table by the process server next to the cake box. "You have been served." He said that what followed was a loud shriek from her. The cake was seen by at least 8 employees in the workplace. My wife freaked out and slapped the enormous cake box off the table, landing on the carpet with the picture still visible. Several of her coworkers began berating her, and she began to weep and shout. The process server made a fast exit. My phone blew up, and all I could do was put her to voicemail. I'm not going to bother reading her messages. She hasn't returned home, but her mother contacted me to say she'll be staying over there for the time being. The cake's ecstatic surge felt fantastic. But as the hours pass, I find myself reflecting on my lawyer's statements. Did I mess this up?